Take a hike. I wore my hand-me-down sneakers from my mom's fitness phase because why else would I own sneakers? Why else would my closet have one pair of Skechers when I could never bring myself to exercise because I only worked out when I needed to punish myself? Out of guilt, out of shame, out of something that tastes bad in my mouth, out of self-loathing. Hearing my ex tell me, you'd have to lose so much weight for it to matter, and by the way, to all those people who have told me since gym in the 3rd grade the same things. The girls who said, Coach, you know she'll never climb the rope. No one could hold that much weight up. Fuck you. Last weekend, I dragged all 220 morbidly obese pounds of me up a mountain. You were wrong. I am a small cluster of stardust on a tiny planet in a compact little galaxy in the middle of space. And I'm stronger than even I think. I carried 220 pounds of me up a goddamn mountain. Mile 1. I took a trail around the mountain, tucked away and hidden from the shouting children, the miserable runners in leg day muscle tees, the sweaty old men too eager to share a story or 7, far away from everything. But I felt so close to myself. I listened to nothing but the sounds around me. There was no voice in the back of my head, no bully behind my ear spitting shame onto the back of my neck. There was nothing behind me. There was only going forward. I felt the crunch of rock underneath my feet. I heard the sounds of birds and the quiet dancing of the lake. I tasted sweat on my upper lip, the cool water from the bottle sweating alongside me. I looked up at the blue skies, the trees along the path carved with the initials of lovers. I eventually stopped checking for the white, spray-painted checkpoints because the trail had been walked before. I trusted that I could follow the sneaker prints, the dog prints. I trusted that people have hiked this trail before, and so could I. With the dizzying smell of open air filling me to bursting as I inhaled, I continued, with deep breaths, taking sips of water as I went. Thirst and asthmatic wheezing, just reminders that my fragile body, brittle as stone, could tell me what it needed. Mile 2. More water and albuterol breaks, more deep breaths, more steps forward. Over gnarled tree roots, under low branches, over ravines around so much history, so many small reminders that a lifetime is a mountain just blinking her eye. This was the beginning of sweat, the twinge in my ankle, the reminders that bodies fall apart, the fear that I'd give up, I'd lose. Water became a demand, a desperation. Have you ever tasted water? Have you ever put a name to the taste? I gulped down the most delicious tap water the Atlanta watershed could provide as I hiked. Water that tasted like power, like strength. I tasted water that caressed my throat, and I could feel that 75% of me that's made of the stuff expanding, becoming more. I became more than me. Water tastes like knowing yourself. Water tastes like love. This is better than drinking. This bites more than 5 shots of whiskey, and I am drunk off the sunlight. Off the water I gulped down like I've never tasted it before. Mile 2.5 meant a 5-minute break. I dipped my toes in a ravine clear as a sheet of glass. I watched, breathed in the smells of the lake, watched as the glimmering water curled around my ankles. Water is a goddess. Water is a deity. Belisama, the brightest one, the strongest one, Celtic goddess of water. Drinking her sacrifices in tasted like her glittering palm across my face, red with heat and hurting. Tasted like her kiss on my forehead, and her quiet, keep going. Mile 2 was the first and only time I tripped and fell, trying to cross the slick stones in the ravine and losing my balance, sliding face first into the coldest water I've ever felt. This is what pure exhilaration tastes like. These stones did not betray me. My feet were simply too rough to glide over them. These stones rubbed clean of their chiseled facets by the constant flowing water of the infant waterfall behind me. These stones. These ancient reminders that we exist only for a moment of an infinity. These stones glittered with more colors than I knew I could perceive, more beautiful than any gem, more wonderfully soft to feel on my sore feet than any pedicure. Mile 2 made me really wish that I could paint. Mile 3. I am astounded by my own body. I am grounded, I am humbled, I am one with everything. I need no music because the constant breeze conducted the trees into a hymn. I worshiped the ground beneath me, the muscles in my legs, the creeping shade that provided me with much-needed shield from the sun. I knew all at once what it meant to be active, what endorphins were, why people talk about a runner's high. I have done lots of drugs, but it is to hiking that I am most addicted. I felt my sins sweating out of me. I felt the regret of the years of underage overdrinking and shitty friends and cheap weed and passive-aggressive roommates and money and my relationship with my father melt away with my sunburn. And with every step of that 3rd mile, I was reminded that this is where I belonged. This is how strong I am. Mile 3 was the mile that reminded me of my humanity, of my limits, of what I thought I was incapable of and yet was doing right then, right there. Of course I couldn't hike up a goddamn mountain. People have been telling me all my life that it's too late for me, that I am fat and therefore incapable, that I am fat and therefore worthless, that I am fat and therefore lazy. I am fat. And therefore I am strong. And therefore I am even more of a warrior than anyone could know because I carried myself, all 220 pounds of myself, around and up a mountain. Mile 3 is when I started to notice my belly jiggling as I hiked, the heat generated from the friction of my thighs rubbing together, the way the muscles in my butt made it clench as I took larger steps, the way my arms moving along with my rhythmic walking had skin that spilled over my sports bra, over my tank top. Mile 3 is when I saw these things and I laughed, and I loved, and I took another puff of my inhaler and kept going. Mile 4. A literal uphill battle. Reaching the part of the trail where the markers move steadily up the mountain that has been rubbed smooth from Georgia rain, the mountain that leads to the walking trail, where every sane person begins their hike, the mountain that I would crawl on for fear of sliding hundreds of feet down into the forest below me. Mile 4 was the scariest. The first time clumsy me looked down at how far I'd come and took a shuddering inhale of pure fear. Mile 4 was the first time I cried, the first time I lied out loud and said that I could not possibly do this. Goddess, forgive me, for I have sinned, I lied, I did it. A few gulps of water, a 10-minute break, some tears later, I did it. I scaled a mountain that has caution signs plastered all over. The mountain is slippery when wet. Do not go off the labeled path, watch your step. I watched my steps as I climbed, counted them each as individual victories. I won over 100 battles that day. And as my thighs screamed out that they could not possibly take any more, they did. Sometimes walking sideways, sometimes crawling for the first time since I learned to walk on the floors of my grandmother's trailer. My thighs, my legs, my body took it all in like a champion. And so it began, the ascent, what I'm sure the battle to climb into heaven will be like, pulling myself up by the guardrail handles that appeared a mile too late, openly sobbing that I could not possibly do this as I did it. And then, reaching the top, seeing the Atlanta skyline in all its glory, the building I worked at those years at the law firm, a distant, foggy outline. Remembering those days, walking through the city at 16, convinced I was the center of the universe, looking at the skyline and suddenly realizing how small I am. Small like the sun, small like a dot on a map marking your hometown, small like the tendons that connect your ankles to your feet, your legs to your hips, small like the things that tie you together, strong. Small and strong like an electric shock, like steel cables centimeters wide and capable of holding literal tons. Small and strong like stardust, the stuff we are all made of. Small and strong like history. Small and strong like a ravine leading into a lake around a little mountain in Georgia. Small and strong like my victories.